All right, let's get started. Good morning and good afternoon from wherever you're joining today. Welcome to the virtual premiere of Housing Over Hate. My name's Billy, and I have the honor of working for Congressman Gomez, and we're all super grateful for that you took the time to join us today. Before we begin, I just want to introduce our panelists. Joining us are Congressional Progressive Caucus members Congressman Jimmy Gomez, Congressman Troy Carter of New Orleans, and also with us are veteran political organizer Jessica Craven and independent journalist Nick Valencia. Behind the scenes is also the amazing team at Brave New Films, the production company we worked with to make this film possible. Before I turn it over to Congressman Gomez to say a few words and begin the film, we just have some brief opening remarks from the president of Brave New Films, Robert Greenwald, which will be followed by a short video that'll set the scene for our discussion today. Robert, take it away.
I'm Robert Greenwald from Brave New Films, and I'd like to welcome everybody who's joining us for this release of Housing Over Hate. I'd particularly like to thank Representative Gomez and his unusually creative and active staff, Billy and Liam and Carlos and Michael, all of whom participated in making this happen. Brave New Films focuses on videos. We do full-length documentaries, we do short videos, we're a nonprofit, and this is our first experiment in helping to call attention to an important piece of legislation. We believe that other elected officials with their staff will consider new and different ways of getting attention, of using video, of using social media in order to reach an audience that frankly may not read or look at some of the more traditional ways of announcing legislation. This piece of legislation is close to the hearts of many of the representatives you'll hear from today, and we hope that you'll help spread the word, engage your elected officials, and become a champion for housing over hate. Thank you.
Their priority is to scapegoat immigrants.
They're terrorizing. They're not here to help. Going to schools and terrorizing parents, going to rooftops where people are working, gainfully employed, fixing someone's roof and yanking the ladder down.
But people have to realize there's just another way to get more taxpayer funds to private corporations.
Completely rogue operation, terrorizing communities across the country. You know, it's not making us safer. It is dehumanizing countless people, and most of the people in the detention centers have no criminal record whatsoever, and many of them were here legally.
Neighbors who have been little old ladies and grandmas, that's who you want to go after?
Thank you, Robert, and thank you to the people at Brave New Films for that short scene setter today. I'll now hand it over to Congressman Gomez to say a few words before we play the film.
Yeah, thank you, Billy. And let me just thank Nick, Jessica, and of course, my colleague, Rep. Carter, for being here. And thank, of course, Brave New Films for taking on this project. It is important to communicate to the people where they're at. Often now is more than ever through film and visual advocacy. And that's why this film is important. Right now, what we're seeing across the country is Donald Trump's personalized secret police that is terrorizing communities, CBP and ICE, started in Los Angeles, where I'm from. And we knew that when it started there, it wouldn't end there, and it would spread across the country. And that has accumulated in just the violations of people's rights, people who are documented and undocumented, citizens and non-citizens, and even resulting in the death and killing of citizens as well as immigrants, and more deaths occurring in detention than they had in this past year than the previous 10 years. And what is funding that is $175 billion that was put into the One Big Beautiful Bill, Trump's really transfer of wealth from working class people to the highest income people. And what was tucked in was that 175 billion that would expand CBP, expand ICE, expand detention beds, expand surveillance. And we knew that if we left that money there, things would get worse. And what this bill acknowledges that we should take that money and put it into something that actually uplifts Americans, makes our economy grow, and makes people feel that they are seen and that their dignity is respected, which is we should put it into housing. That means renter assistance, building new starter homes, converting underutilized office and commercial real estate to housing, and then providing down payment assistance to people who want to buy that first home so that they can be a part of this country, and make sure that that next generation is better than the last. But it's also, we know that if we leave that in place, that money in place, this will continue to get worse because that money has no strings. It's a slush fund to do what Trump wants to do with it. That's why you're seeing now, as Jessica Craven has mentioned, money going to buy warehouses to turn them into detention centers. And you're going to see that kind of corruption, that kind of fraud and abuse continue. So this bill is to really say that we should be putting our money into housing over hate and making everybody better off, not worse off. With that, I'd love for you to play the film, Billy, so that people can see what we're talking about.
Thank you, Congressman. Let's play.
He's a citizen, bro.
If you want to know where the character of our country lies, you look at the budget. And the fact of the matter is that we're seeing this much money go toward a hateful campaign meant to terrorize our communities instead of going to the fact that people deserve to have a roof over their head in the richest country on the face of this earth.
I introduced Make Housing Affordable, Defend Democracy Act because I wanted to tackle two major problems: housing affordability and the $175 billion slush fund for ICE and CBP. When I was about 3 years old, a developer ended up buying up the neighborhood we lived in Orange County, and my parents were forced to move.
I ran for office at the state level after seeing as a physician over and over again my patients having to make really impossible decisions about whether they pay their rent or they get the chemotherapy.
We have renters and people who qualify for Section 8 vouchers who are on waiting lists for years and they cannot get a voucher.
I lived in a place called Winter Park in my district. There was a rent hike moratorium that was in place because of COVID. Once that was lifted during my campaign, my rent went up 33% in a month. And so I got priced out of my apartment.
My family was kicked out of one of our childhood homes because we didn't own it, and it was out in Orange County. A developer bought up the neighborhood and turned it into a strip mall, and all the families in that neighborhood had to move.
I experienced homelessness for a while there, sleeping, in my friends' couches, sleeping in my car, doing everything I could to, just have a place to sleep at night.
Under the current system, those who need help the most pay more, and those who need it least pay less.
You can't even really benefit from health care if you don't have basic food and shelter covered.
Years later, when I got sick with pneumonia, my parents had to put that house up for collateral. So this has always been a personal issue to me. That 175 billion cannot stand. It allows Trump to create a national police force out of CBP and ICE that does whatever he wants, whenever he wants.
Take that $175 billion and put it where it can really make a difference in people's lives. Put it into housing programs, and you watch what the economy does. You watch what strengthening neighborhoods do.
$175 billion investment in housing. Renters could get the support that they need to be able to afford to pay rent in a city like Phoenix, Arizona. We could turn empty lots or old abandoned buildings into new housing opportunities.
175 billion across this country could supply down payments for all the first home buyers.
You have ICE, that is just a completely rogue operation terrorizing communities across the country. You have private prison companies making billions of dollars on our detention centers. We have to prioritize our budget in a way that really focuses on people and their futures and not scapegoating of populations like immigrants and refugees.
It would mean truly affordable community-based housing. Housing should be a human right.
If we don't push back, then this will get worse. This money being in place is too dangerous. It's more money than most militaries across the globe have, creating an internal military force that is meant to repress the American people. We're going to put it into programs that actually help Americans deal with the affordability crisis in this country.
All right, thanks so much. I'm now going to hand it back to Congressman Gomez to say a few more words about the film.
Yeah, no, thank you, Billy. That was amazing when I first watched it. I was really impressed. You know, what people get to see is six members of Congress from all parts of the country talking about housing, talking about immigration, talking about how we should be investing in people and not in hate and Donald Trump's ability to terrorize and to control the population. And people think it doesn't impact them. They're dead wrong. And I'm proud that the Congressional Progressive Caucus has endorsed this bill, as well as over 75 members of Congress. We're building momentum, but it's about storytelling. It's about putting into stark contrast of what this money goes to, either ripping families apart or giving families a place to live and a head start to create a stronger and more prosperous future. And that's what I kind of, you know, I'm a son of immigrants, came from Mexico. Four of my siblings were born there, and their ability to buy a house in the United States after we got kicked out of our first rental property made a big difference. My mom, in that photo you saw, she still lives there. My sister, who got a divorce, had to move back in with my nephew. She still lives there. That house, even though it's small, didn't have air conditioning when I was growing up or heat, still gives stability. And that's why we're doing this. And I think that everybody should have that opportunity. So I want to say thank you for the members and also the folks that are here. If we can also, and this bill, when I first introduced it, only had about 30 members signed on. It's grown since then. A lot of members weren't talking about that $175 billion. They were like, they kind of, I don't know if they forgot, you know, we deal with a lot of different issues. And I was saying, hey, this money is too dangerous. Well, now you have other members talking about the 175 billion. Senator Cortez Masto said, hey, that 175 billion, we should take it and take it away and then put it into local law enforcement. Not what I would do, but at least she says, hey, that money is too dangerous to leave in place. So other members are doing the same thing. And that means that there's a consensus forming within the Democratic caucus that money should not stay. So I want to now take an opportunity to introduce a friend of mine, Representative Carter, he understands this. He's a fighter for our communities, working class communities, but immigrant communities as well. And he was a co-sponsor originally. So really want to say thank you just for your support and kick it over to Representative Carter.
First, excuse me, guys, I'm losing my voice a little bit, but let me begin by thanking Brave New Films for highlighting this urgent story. I am so incredibly proud to stand with my colleague and friend, a true fighter, Congressman Jimmy Gomez, and want to thank him for his leadership on the Make Housing Affordable and Defend Democracy Act. This is so important. I can't even begin to tell you during a time such as this how important having leaders like Jimmy and having people who are willing to stand up against the atrocities that we see happening in our country. You know, I grew up in New Orleans, where I've watched families get pushed out of the neighborhoods they built, hurricanes, flooding, skyrocketing insurance costs. They've reshaped who gets to stay and who gets forced out. Housing isn't an abstract issue here. It's culture, it's community, it's survival. Right now, families are being squeezed from every direction. Home prices are up, rents are up, homeowners and flood insurance are up, homelessness is at a record high. And instead of tackling the crisis, this unconstitutional Trump administration has prioritized an inhumane mass deportation, and terror campaign. It was mentioned earlier by several, creating a $170 billion slush fund to supercharge ICE. ICE, who has become a rogue group of vigilantes with badges. $175 billion slush fund while investing practically nothing to keep a roof over people's heads. Imagine what $175 billion would mean for our country. We can cut rents, help first-time home buyers with down payments, retrofit homes with fortified roofs to protect them from storms like in my state of Louisiana that sees hurricanes come as often now as what feels like every other day. Displacement undermines democracy. When renters, seniors, and working families are priced out, they lose their voice and their stake in the community. Housing over hate in New Orleans means protecting people who make this city what it is. That's why I'm so proud to stand with Representative Gomez, to stand with my other brothers and sisters in the Progressive Caucus and beyond, to demonstrate, although we may be outvoted in Congress, we're not outvoiced and we will not quit. I'm honored to be with you, my dear brother, honored to work through and to pass this measure and to bring a semblance of normalcy where fairness and justice truly is for all back to our country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congressman Carter. Now we are going to turn it over to Los Angeles political activist Jessica Craven, who's done just an incredible job at using her platform to elevate and break down the extreme immigration enforcement tactics around the country. So, Jessica.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to Brave New Films for this incredible work of art, as well as a sort of political video. This is wonderful to see art being brought to this sort of cause. And thank you, Congressman Gomez, who also is my congressman and for whom I knocked doors many years ago when he was first running. Thank you, Representative Carter. And thank you, Nick, for being here as well. When Representative Gomez first told me about this bill, I was so excited because I have, among other things, a political actions newsletter that goes out to over 150,000 people every day. And people are looking for two things. They are looking to push back against the sort of aggression and lawlessness of this administration, but they're also looking for a vision for repair and building. It's not enough to say, although it is true, ICE is out of control, they're a rogue agency. These are people who are being sent into the field with an average now of 42 days of training, which is absurd considering what they're doing. They've got military grade weapons. They are going out with there's no interest in actual enforcement of immigration law. This is all about fear and hate. And so you can say all of that and people know it, but we need a vision for what is actually needed in this country. And that's what this bill does so beautifully. It is true that ICE cannot be allowed to keep this $175 billion slush fund. It's very dangerous. And we haven't even touched on what I think we will learn eventually to be massive amounts of actual waste, fraud, and abuse. I think that we will find that there is political cronyism turning into grift and graft with this money that will shock the American conscience. I believe we will learn that as well. But we also want to talk about problems and how they can be fixed. And this is a beautiful way of saying we can take this money and we can put it towards what everybody in America knows. Unless you are a billionaire, unless you are in the top 1%, everybody knows is one of the largest problems we face, and it will only grow worse with time. And so this is what we want from our Democratic lawmakers right now. And it's really great to see. It's great to see Representative Gomez and Carter and others calling out ICE and saying they cannot be allowed to keep this money. And it is equally great to see them saying, this is one of the largest problems we have, and we want to take this money and essentially use it for a housing moonshot. We need this kind of vision right now. And I'm incredibly grateful to see it. When I told my readers about it, the enthusiasm was off the charts. This is a bill people really want to see. And while we could say, oh, well, it's never going to happen right now, that's not how you pass legislation. You start with an idea, you gain co-sponsors, as Representative Gomez has been doing, and eventually we get this done. It is so terribly, terribly important for Americans to feel once again like lawmakers are actually building something for them. And I love to see this. I will support it wholeheartedly. I'm just really honored to be at this press conference. Housing over hate. That is it in a nutshell. And I hope we see a lot more legislation like this, and we see a lot of support for this. And thanks.
Thanks so much, Jessica. Really appreciate it. And lastly, I want to turn it over to Nick Valencia, an independent journalist who, after 20 years with CNN, is now on the ground all over the country, including in Minnesota recently, documenting, interviewing people who've been affected by these harsh immigration enforcement tactics. Nick, take it away. Thank you.
Billy, I'm so grateful to be here. Congressman Gomez, Congressman Carter, thank you. And I just want to start out by saying I love to see the black and brown unity. I love to see the optics of that and our communities coming together, because it's the Latino community right now that's being persecuted, and the black community knows so much about that. And we need allies right now, and we are stronger. Our voices are stronger together. So thank you for just the optics of coming together on this. And to Congressman Gomez, you are my representative for California 34th District. I grew up in Eagle Rock, Highland Park. Thanks for not being full of shit. There's a lot of representatives right now that are, a lot of people that are saying things, and you're actually walking the walk. When you joined my show a couple of months ago, you talked about this. I'd like to say you broke the news on my show, but I'm sure you broke the news somewhere else bigger. But my audience, just like Jessica's, was very interested in what this means, because as we were learning over the course of the last 9 months since I've been out there as an independent, people really are the product when it comes to President Trump's mass deportation policy. They are the commodity. And in this corporate America, where we struggle from this disease of individualism and we think it's not our problem until it is, housing is that intersection and that through line that shows us that, are we citizens or are we commodities? Once we stop being able to contribute to this country, we're discarded and thrown on the street. And what Congressman Gomez is doing with his personal experience, strength, and hope, clearly I don't know Representative Carter as well as I do Representative Gomez, but clearly using his personal experience, strength, and hope to push forward something that is of service to Americans, and something that we really desperately need right now, because cruelty is the point under President Trump. And when you have basically an us versus them mentality where press freedom is being targeted, independent journalists, we already see the institutions, how corrupted they have been, even if the players with them are not. It's voices like ours, Jessica's, myself, and other independent colleagues that are really leading the charge in the truth right now. And now is not a time to be neutral. Now is a time to be truthful. And I am really grateful to be seen and to be recognized by someone with such of a following like Representative Gomez and Carter, and to just be given this opportunity to speak my truth here with you guys. So thanks, Billy.
Thank you, Nick. And thank you to everyone, all of our panelists here today, Congressman Gomez, Carter, Jessica. Now I want to take a chance and open it up to press, our audience, for questions. If you have a question for Congressman Gomez or Carter, please use the raise hand icon in the lower part of your screen, and I will be able to unmute you. Great. Okay. First question we will take is from an Aiden Williams with Bloomberg and LA Magazine. Aiden?
Yeah, thank you so much, Billy. And thank you, Representatives Gomez and Carter, for putting on this event, and Jessica and Nick for being here. My question is, do you see this bill being connected to the current shutdown in DHS funding? For example, if you got this bill through, would you allow for DHS to resume, or are you still looking for those structural reforms in ICE?
No, I think there's definitely need not only be structural reforms, but you need to look at what is the underpinnings that allow ICE and CBP to spread their fear and their hate across the country. And it's money is part of it, but it's also the policies and the legal rationale that allows them to violate people's rights. As long as that's all in place, this continues. So I'm a firm believer that we got to dismantle ICE because it is fundamentally broken. It's not fulfilling its mission of going after the criminals who are criminal undocumented individuals. That's who they should go after. It's widespread. And if you don't deal with the money, um, you don't deal with the policies, and you don't deal with the legal rationales, this will continue. Remember, this administration put out a memo that says that they only need administrative warrants, not judicial warrants. That's now allowing people to do these random searches and seizures against the Fourth Amendment. So we have to systematically deal with what's allowing Trump to not only abuse his power, but abuse the American people. So this is a step to say, hey, let's get rid of that money that deals with one part. But then the money that there's still going to be money there that will allow them to continue to terrorize our neighborhood. So that's why the policy is important as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Aiden. Next question, we actually have another Aiden, Aiden Brooks. Take it away, Aiden.
Let's see. I think I was sorry about that. Yes. Hi. I have a question for Representative Gomez and Representative Carter. With the DHS shutdown, have you or the Progressive Caucus looked into ways to fund agencies like TSA or FEMA without funding ICE in the process?
I'll take that. I'll tell you, yes. It's one of the things that we're looking at as ways that we can carve out those uninfected, the ones that we don't have the issue with. TSA workers should not be caught up in the net, if you will, of what we're dealing with these rogue officers with ICE. So we are looking at ways to carve out, protect those other agencies while working for true, lasting, and meaningful reform within the ICE organization.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Congressman Carter. Congressman Gomez, if you want to say anything.
No, I think Congressman Carter is correct that they're trying to figure out how to carve those components out. But this administration, even if we carve those components out, they use whatever excuse that they need to justify their actions. Either one, they make up facts that are on the ground, oftentimes when it comes to CBP and ICE and their behavior, to deny members of Congress their ability to do oversight. And three, are trying to figure the Trump administration is always looking for workarounds regarding whatever requirements. So I think that it's important to carve it out, and so that we can deal with ICE and CBP and Department of Homeland Security separately. But it's not. I don't know if the Trump administration probably won't allow that because they want people to feel the pain, and that's just my interpretation of what they're trying to do. But of course, we're trying to isolate.
Thanks, Congressman Gomez. And now, just because we're running a little bit short on time, I'd really like to take the chance to ask our guest panelists a question or two. Nick, Jessica, again, thank you so much for being here. You've both been covering Donald Trump's immigration raids pretty closely from the start. In recent weeks and months, you've both had the chance to speak with a number of lawmakers about the importance of reining in ICE. What would you say makes this bill from Congressman Gomez, endorsed by the Progressive Caucus, different from the usual rhetoric we hear around, putting a stop to ICE and Trump's deportation machine? You kind of touched on it a bit in your opening remarks, but I'd like to hear a little bit about the difference between what you're seeing. Let's start with Jessica, and then we can go to Nick.
Yeah, I would just say again the importance of drawing the lines, and I think Rep. AOC did this beautifully, reminding people that, because we all know we don't have healthcare, right? Healthcare is a massive crisis right now. Housing, massive crisis. Prices in general, massive crisis. Utility bills, massive crisis. But to draw the line and say all of that could be funded, like the funding that is going to ICE is taking things away from you. So I think from a messaging standpoint, which it's not that messaging really is substantively important, but it does matter for Americans to be reminded the money that ICE has is money you don't have. It is money that is being taken away from your housing, and we can take it back anytime. So there's something very empowering about this bill. I don't know of another piece of legislation that draws that line so directly and says, we can do a housing moonshot, but we've got to take money away from an agency that has, what, at this point, 2/3, I believe, of Americans feel that ICE has gone too far at this point. Nobody likes what's happening. And this bill says, yeah, we don't like it either. And we'd like to take that money and put it towards housing, which we know everybody wants. So it's a brilliant bill from just a pragmatic standpoint, a messaging standpoint, and a vision standpoint, which is something that we need. That's my feeling.
Thanks, Jessica. Nick?
We hear this argument all the time that it's about law and order, but the people that support what we're seeing on the streets conveniently allow these companies, which have built a system and infrastructure to allow migrants, immigrants to work for them, they always get a pass, And I think journalism and politics at their best, it's a public service. And this is reminding Americans, when we're really desperate right now for, like Jessica said, a vision, a remedy. It's really easy to all gather around and say, we don't like that, but what's next? Because I do believe this is just a moment in time. There's nothing new under the sun, I mean, people have dealt with difficult times in history before, and we've made it through. We've made it through the other side, but it takes people to have a vision and to look at solutions and a remedy. Are we going to stop? Is this bill going to stop seeing, the videos that we see every single day of these violent arrests? No. Nothing is going to be a silver bullet perfect solution. But at the very least, we have people who are trying to realize that dignity comes with housing, and that is a way to stabilize our country, stabilize people from being out there on the streets, committing crimes, being real criminals. I mean, I think I'm preaching to the choir here. We know that majority of the people that come across and the people that I see on the border, where I'm about to go on Saturday, they don't run from the agents when they get caught in the open fields. They're so grateful to see somebody in uniform here because they really are coming here for a better opportunity, an asylum, for a better life. And I think this vision that Congressman Gomez has, even with this bill, and just, partnering with other lawmakers and trying to figure out ways that we can help people and be of service to them. I'm all for that, and I really am. I'm really grateful that he has this plan in place.
Hey, Billy, let me add one thing, just because Nick's comments kind of made me think about it. It's called Make Housing Affordable and Defend Democracy. And the obvious part of defend democracy is ICE and CBP are a threat to it. That's the most forward part, the most blunt part. But what's also a threat to democracy is people losing faith that the system can work, that that next generation will be better off than they are. And in the 2000s, there was a poll that came out, showed that 78% of the American people believe that the system no longer works and that their kids are going to be worse off in the 70s. And in the 2000s, it was about in the 20s and 30 percentile. A lot of that is connected to housing. There's correlations that people think that the system works if they believe that they can actually buy a home. They believe the system doesn't work if they don't believe that they can buy a home or their kids can buy a home. So these two things, and that means that if we want to take care of the rise of extremism in our politics, the rise of authoritarianism, you need to deal with the underlying economic frustrations of the American people. And when you do that, you defend democracy at its base. That democracy is meant not for the billionaires, but for the average worker and family in this country. So it's twofold, right? So that's why housing over hate is important, and how that's going to also defend our democracy in the long term. Because if we don't deal with that, another I don't want to say another despot, another person will play on those fears and say, hey, these people are to blame, or those people are to blame, and I am the only one that could save you. Does it sound familiar? And they will never end up delivering it, because they're basing their power on the frustrations and fears that people are experiencing. So housing over hate is about defending our democracy, but it's at the core what people want out of their government.
Thank you, Congressman. And with that, that is about all the time we have. I just want to quickly thank again our awesome panelists that were joining us today, Nick, Jessica, and of course, Congressman Carter and Gomez. Thank you everyone who joined us today to watch this, really amazing film put together by our partners at Brave New Films. Housing Over Hate, we will provide an access link if you'd like to watch it again further. But from here, I want to appreciate all of you for joining. Thank you. And that does it.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Billy. Thanks, Jessica, Nick, Rep. Carter, of course, sir.